Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing fantastic. And that you're all having an absolutely incredible day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. We have once again, I guess, re-entered the bullish, optimistic Power Ranger zone something or other. Because, for some reason, at least at the time of me making this video, a lot of the fear and anxiety that was in the market has seemingly dissipated? Question mark? I'm not really sure. So the last couple of months were quite, I'll use the word tumultuous, in that everyone was seemingly afraid of everything, then not, and or other. And minimal price movements upward has apparently reinvigorated the space, and analysts and all these other things and charts and exactly as to where we're going to be going in the future. Really one of my favorite metrics has actually been rising once again, and it's the how do I say this? Oh snaps, we should have never left the market in the first place. Now we got to go back in because we didn't realize that we were being duped before, and we sold our coins at another price, and we should have still held on to them because we would have had more money. Metric. That's not what the metric is called, but that's what I'm going to be calling it. On-chain data shows that Bitcoin is forming a pattern in its total amount of holders, which last proved bullish for the cryptocurrency. According to data from on-chain analytics company Santiment, Bitcoin investors have been liquidating their wallets amid the recent bearish wave within the asset class. The indicator of relevance here is the total amount of holders, which measures, as the name suggests, the total amount of addresses holding some Bitcoin on the network. When the value of this metric goes up, it means new investors are joining the network, and old ones who have sold earlier are returning. Bada bing, bada boom. That's the most important part right there. Because we always have new people in the market. We always have new addresses activated every single day. Still hoping and wishing and praying for that 1 billion users over the course of this bull run. The other really popular metric is people who left the market. The people, remember when prices were dipping and dropping and slopping and flopping and everyone was terrified and afraid. When you see the prices go down, it's usually people who are, and I don't want to use the term easily afraid. Listen, we all have our own fears. But it's usually people who are in the market for some quick, fast money. The quick, fast money doesn't arrive. They get discouraged. They end up leaving. And then at some point when prices begin to rise again, they re-enter the market. They have to re-enter and rebuy at a higher price than they sold before. And this unforeseen level of FOMO begins to hit them quite hard. Because, for instance, let's say you had 2,000 XRP. And then you sold up all your XRP and you try and buy back in and you see that you can only buy 1,200. Well, that's a problem. You're missing 800 XRP. So people begin to start buying a lot more to be able to get back to where they were before, but they also end up spending a lot more money than they did in the first place. Yeah, we're seeing the amount of holders, people who are holding Bitcoin, continuously rise. This is a metric that, and I mean for lack of a better way of saying it, is typically always rising. A lot of times we simply see coins being reshuffled around amongst different holders, but there's always new people in the market. The next big thing, but we're months away from this happening. The next big thing is when we pass by the 100,000, 105,000, 110,000. And Bitcoin is everywhere in the news. What's going to then happen is we're going to start seeing like the hyper retail enter the market. So I place retail in different categories in my mind. The way that rich people categorize us is that we're all basically retail. If we are not, holding $100 million worth of Bitcoin, then we're simply normies walking around the earth trying to do whatever we can. But I think there's like normal retail, like us, people who are in the market. We don't have an enormous amount of money to sling around to be able to buy 50,000 XRP per day, what have you. However, the other side of retail are your friends and family members who ask you about crypto, but they don't really like want to commit to crypto. They had some before, but it was like some crappy coins, whatever, so and so and so. The issue is, as is always the issue, once prices go too high, for them to be able to think about potentially being able to try and afford some of it, these people rush back into the market, trying to make the riches that they see. And I don't want to say that they see you making, but you understand the money that you begin to make because they see it in the news. They go, I want to make that same kind of money, not realizing that they should have been buying over the course of the last 2 to 3 years as prices were a lot lower. So this is a metric that I didn't know that I loved, and the last here we are. So regardless of any days where we might have some price drops or things aren't looking too rosy, always remind yourself that the large whales are accumulating. Normal people are accumulating. Governments are accumulating. Despite news otherwise. I don't know how people heard the news that governments were moving around coins, or one government was selling their coins, and everyone's like, and I was like, that multiple governments have Bitcoin. Like, you can Google it. They have Bitcoin, and there are other governments who are actively accumulating. So anytime you might get negative news, it's just that. It's just negative news. The trend continues. Bitcoin is still on the path to $1 million per coin. Wealthy people are still salivating at the fact that they can buy Bitcoin at a discount right now. And also, the whole futuristic generational wealth kind of thing. But that's only for the true believers to really understand. So yeah, Bitcoin metrics are looking pretty fantastico. And apparently the amount of people who sold before are now rebuying into the market because, logic. And yeah, let's move on. Okay, so I need to be honest with you, like completely 1,000% honest. This is probably one of my favorite news stories in a while, and I'll explain it to you. A couple of years ago, I want to say four years ago, we started getting a lot of news about South Africa, about Nigeria, about Brazil, and about, Singapore wasn't in that conversation yet. These were countries who apparently looked like that they were going to be at the forefront of cryptocurrency adoption. They were going to have crypto regulations. They were going to help their communities. They were going to help their cities and their countrymen by making cryptocurrency rules and laws and regulations and making sure that they got way ahead of every other country in doing so. The only one who really prevailed in that conversation thus far has been Brazil. Brazil is like hyper adopted. You can go into supermarkets and buy little cards and they say Bitcoin on them. And we've seen thousands and thousands of stories. Nigeria, on the other hand, was touted as a place where things could go in that direction, but they actually never did. We've gone over before, years ago, when I used to listen to a lot more cryptocurrency podcasts and yada, yada, yada. And they would have people from Nigeria talking about Nigeria itself is usually touted as like a technological kind of, up and coming, can potentially rival other places kind of thing. technology-wise and computer-wise and all these other things. And so people were like, okay, so clearly crypto is going to be on that agenda as well. However, over the course of the last 2 years or so, there's been like a gigantic backtrack as far as like, moving forward. Like you move, one step forward, but then like 15 back. That's kind of basically what's been happening within Nigeria. The recenter news that we received a couple of weeks ago, for those of you who were not here, was that apparently this was months ago. Apparently, allegedly, a bunch of cryptocurrency exchanges were not following rules and regulations. They didn't do this, they didn't do that, and they were being told to leave or to, really get it together to, work with regulators. One, I think much like the US SEC, I think that's a complete lie because I find it impossible to believe that any company, especially a crypto company, would go into a country, regardless of where they were, and would make sure that they had not contacted regulators or made sure that they were not regulated. Just no one goes to a country to do something illegal just to make sure that they're doing something illegal when they're worth billions of dollars. And then we had news that apparently Binance specifically was being singled out because they didn't have X, Y, and Z, and they didn't apparently say what the things that they needed were. So the people from Binance were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you please clarify things for us? And then we had news that allegedly some of the Binance officials were being hassled. This is the, allegations, the news that we were hearing. And apparently one of them has still been detained for no apparent reason, other than the fact that, allegedly, the people from Binance released information that said that they had been contacted by Nigerian officials, basically asking for $5 million for the release of said person, which, if we can be completely honest, I trust the people from Binance, if I can put it that way. And then we had, what was the news? And then we had news. I don't know why Nigeria is in the news so often recently. And then we had news recently that a Nigerian SEC official, for those of you who missed it, this was also great. He claimed that the only reason why people in Nigeria were getting into crypto was for secrecy. You didn't mishear that. It's not because that their local currency is actually poo-poo garbage. It's not because of the high levels of corruption within their government. And to be completely clear, all governments have some form of corruption. It is not just this one on the screen. But the idea that people might want control over their finances, the fact that people might, in a dystopian world, find Bitcoin's value to be more stable than their local currency, completely went over their head. The SEC officials said that people in Nigeria were using crypto because of the secrecy. They didn't want the government to know what they were doing, alluding to the fact that these people must be bad, must be evil, must be doing something wrong because of secrecy. Do you understand how nonsensical that is to think that you have destroyed the country? You have made sure that regulation doesn't happen. You rule with a strong, corrupt fist, and that people could want to get away from that system by using crypto. You circumvent all of that and go, well, they must be doing it because it's secret. This brings me to the news story of today. When I saw this news, I was near elated because I feel like I should have seen this coming, and it was so blatantly obvious that this was going to happen. But my friends, I've come to bring you very good news. Nigeria, back in the news again, is intending to build their own blockchain system. You heard that corruptly. I almost said you heard that corruptly. You heard that correctly. Nigeria intends to build a blockchain system to cater to local needs and boost what they call their data sovereignty. You know what that means? Does anyone know what that means? They want to create their own blockchain to have more corruption. The problem with Bitcoin and Ethereum is that they are mega decentralized. Anyone at any given time can use these platforms to send money around the world and also to embed information in the chains and share information and data at a moment's notice all around the world. The problem is that countries don't want that. You know, one of the biggest issues with blockchain and blockchain adoption, it's transparency. As a government, if you are told in the future to adopt the Bitcoin chain, the Ethereum chain, Polygon, Cardano, what have you, and you as a government are using these public chains and you have to put your data onto these chains that then can be accessed by people within your country, well, that causes a huge problem for corruption. How do I move money around the world? How do I move money out of Nigeria without people knowing? If money is digital and money runs on Bitcoin and money runs on Ethereum and money runs on layer 2s, those numbers are transparent. You know how, like, you know, on these things we can see someone marked the wallet addresses, US Bitcoin wallet address, Germany Bitcoin wallet address. There would in the future on different chains, depending on which coin they would use, it would say Nigerian crypto wallet. Now, what happens if we know that there's 3 particular wallets that are used by the people who are doing stuff with their economy? And at some point, $300 million worth of Bitcoin exits their country and goes somewhere else and is transferred to a wallet in London or to South Africa or to Tokyo. And then that money was for the people. And, you know, the way that things normally work is that, especially in cash, you go, oh my, whoa, where'd that money go? Oh, I have no idea what happened. In a transparent, decentralized world, you know exactly where that money went. That's one of the things with Tether. You'll hear a lot of times, oh, Tether, blah, 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 blah. Remember the other day, there was a news story, and it was fake. It was literal propaganda. There was a country, shall not be named, but they're right below Russia, who announced that apparently some crime took place and that the people who committed said crime were asking for money and they wanted it in Tether. And I was like, what? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No one would ask for anything in Bitcoin anymore because Bitcoin transactions can be traced to a T. And at some point, if you want to use that Bitcoin and you're cashing out of an exchange, well, I'm going to know exactly which exchange you're using. Tether is not a decentralized coin. It comes from a centralized company who has placed their coins on multiple other chains. The moment said criminals would have received their bounty in Tether, you would have been able to track it immensely, intensely, everywhere that it went, especially even if these people are trying to swap. For those of you who haven't been here in the market for a while, a lot of alleged criminals over the years, I don't know these people, have actually like swapped into Tether because their brain not big. And they swapped into Tether. And at some point they were trying to move this money around on change and swap it for other things. No, these protocols and these other websites, they know they marked these coins. Like literally, like imagine being able to throw red paint on all the coins at the exact same time and say, wherever they go, we can track where these coins bounce. I can see the trail of red paint. If this guy tries to enter your club, he's bathed in red paint. And then these coins end up being recaptured once again by Tether. It is literal just propaganda to say, well, people are using that. No. What you're not understanding about the idea of decentralization is not the idea of power back to the people. It's also less power for the corrupt. This is why Bitcoin and blockchain are so powerful. This is literally one of the ideas of it. It is about extra transparency for those who are in power. If you run on a Bitcoin standard, and the idea of a Bitcoin standard is that A government can create a new form of fiat currency, comma, they would be doing it based off of the amount of Bitcoin that they have. If a government has 200,000 Bitcoin, they would then be able to, say, for every Bitcoin, we can create 100 million new US Bitcoin dollars. If they start to create more, we would be able to see on chain, you guys don't have any more Bitcoin. You didn't buy any more. Why are you creating extra money? It's a very powerful thing. There are a number of countries around the world, a lot of people don't know this. I've told this to friends before and they're like, no, there isn't. They have their own internet. Do you know why they have their own internet? It's because information should flow freely on the internet. The idea is, around the early 90s, I've read so many things about this. One of the original ideas around the time of Windows 95 was that all information could be shared to everyone at a moment's notice. This is why it's so powerful that everything, all points of history and information that we as humans have achieved or have learned is online for free. It's out there for everyone at a moment's notice to be able to read. You want to learn about this? You walk by this and you go, that sounds interesting. You can learn about it. The problem is that there are many countries around the world who don't want their citizens to actually know about history. You can put a pin on any country that you so see fit for this conversation, because the problem is when you as the public know this information and the government tells you otherwise. I can give you at least 5 different examples that are flowing through my head, but I know for the sake of algorithms, I cannot say. You would not believe what people don't know about history that happened, that we know that happened. And you, even in your mind, you're thinking of specific places on the planet that you've heard about that. And the problem is it's also within your own country as well. So a lot of these countries have their own internet to be able to block outside information or information that was once outside, basically out of their borders, to make sure that they can continuously tell you one narrative over and over and over and over. The creation of Nigeria's own blockchain for data sovereignty means that they want to keep their data within their borders. Why, as a country who's trying to adopt something that is meant to be decentralized, would you want to keep your data specifically within your borders? Now, imagine the world is adopting Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they're using their blockchains to put their information on, and their supply chains, et cetera, and people go, hey, Nigeria, how have you been doing? And they go, huh? Oh, we're good. Can we have access to you? No, I'm sorry. It's for our protection. And you go, huh? Well, every other country has kind of, joined the boat. And they go, yeah, we have as well. And then we find out that this blockchain is only controlled by people in government. Well, that leads to even tighter levels of corruption. Nick, this is the craziest. This is something out of this feels like a Black Mirror episode, but it's reality. Nicknamed Nigerium. It is literally Nigeria and Ethereum together. Nigerium. The blockchain will be built by the country's National Information and Technology Development Agency called NITDA. However, a spokesperson told Decrypt, the crypto website, that there is no timeline for its development and implementation, I'm sure. They said the committee is still in discussion with stakeholders on the possibility. Even if a decision is finally made, there is no assurance that the name will be Nigerium. I don't even know where to begin on that one. First of all, the name is terrible. It sounds like something from a comic book or something like that. Second, no, to this entire thing. I don't know if you know, but this is going to fail. This is not a prophetic, discussion. This is not, what have you. This is simply, we've seen other countries already try to do this already with their own central bank digital currencies and their own coins that they've had. The problem is that decentralization is going to take over the world. It is something, the box has been opened and you cannot close it. Countries who fail to adopt are going to fail. They are going to fall into obscurity in their own little clustered hermit shell crab of a world. They will experience a massive amount of brain drain. For those of you who don't know what brain drain is, I had to recently explain that to someone, so I assume everyone doesn't know what it is. Let's say you have, I'll give it to you this way. India has a massively growing population. With that growing population are an immense amount of very intelligent people who are within India, who deal in tech, who deal in IT, who deal in all these other kinds of sectors, especially crypto. The issue is that the Indian government refuses to give proper cryptocurrency regulation or to legitimize the cryptocurrency space, because much like Nigeria and all the other countries who cannot be named like Voldemort, they're seeing the expansion of usage of Bitcoin within their borders. The problem is that their local currencies are caca-poo-poo, and if they continue seeing these numbers rise, people are going to switch over to a Bitcoin standard sooner than later. So the way that you get people to not join it is you spread loads of propaganda. You talk about how evil and terrible and awful Bitcoin is and who's using it and how bad they are. And you do all these little kinds of things. But the problem is at some point, the intelligent people within that country who are dealing in crypto and dealing in IT and who are the coders, they go, I don't want to be here anymore. So a couple of years ago, someone developed something. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called an airplane. Also, trains exist as well. And people get onto them and they go to other places. Their brain power gets drained from that place and moves to another place. That's the easiest way to kind of explain it. We had news stories years ago of brain drain within Nigeria as well, because I can't even begin to want to imagine the levels of corruption or how much money is, floating around. But yeah. We're witnessing history, and I mean one of the most elegant ways. The name Nigeria, absolute garbage. The idea of keeping your data only within your borders and not being willing to share it with other nations to let them see transparently back and forth how everything's going, because we cannot progress without trust. And even more so, you don't even have to trust everyone anymore, because we have blockchain. We have data consensus directly from the chains themselves. That's also the power of decentralization. We know that these transactions are happening because it says so on chain. I don't need to call you to verify for you to lie to me to tell me that it happened, because I know that tens of thousands of people have validated that transaction and that the money is real. You did not create fake Bitcoin and send me fake Bitcoin, because there's only one Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin that I received was the real Bitcoin on chain. This was validated. We know that the transaction was real. We are witnessing the beginning of the economic end for a lot of different places who don't play ball. We see this in the amount of money flowing into the ETFs. A lot of days when there are ETF outflows and people get scared and they run into corners and they get really sad, you're missing the fact that money is flowing into these things. Do you remember the charts that we had? For those of you who also weren't here during those particular videos, we were getting SEC like filings, and a lot of these filings were coming from mega banks around the world and from central banks who were also accumulating Bitcoin spot and also accumulating it through the ETFs. They understand what's going on. The problem is the most corrupt, and once again, not just the one on the screen, They don't want the system to change. Why would they? They made their billions of dollars from the way that the system has always been working. You assume that these people have their hand only in one cookie jar, but they're actually octopi. And they have their hands in multiple different industries. So when money is flowing through the banking system, they have their money in that system as well. When money is flowing through Swift, they're also getting some fees from that as well. They have their money in every single thing, and it tells them you want to remain in power. Why would you give power back to the people when you don't have to? Remember a couple of years ago, for those of you who also were not here, we had a lot of news that there were, the reason why a lot of governments around the world were creating CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, for those of you who have forgotten, they literally had not a survey. They came together and all came to the same conclusion. They thought that the reason why people around the world were adopting Bitcoin, a decentralized currency, was because that people wanted to use digital currencies and governments hadn't delivered. Not because your rent doubled and tripled. Not because you see the US dollar inflating. Not because you see the people who ruined the world's economy in 2007, 8, and 9 gearing up to do the exact same thing again. Governments said, this was a paper, we went over this in a video. They thought that you wanted to live in the future, and your only option was to use Bitcoin. So they went, no. We need to give them a digital currency because this is what people want. Mental gymnastics, making sure that you completely jump around the entire actual issue, similar to what's his face, the guy from the Fed, Jerome Powell, a couple of weeks ago. He said I don't understand why people are so upset with the economy. He said these words. I don't get it. Jobless numbers are going down. Inflation appears to be going down. Why are people so upset? Says the guy who printed 20 trillion US dollars. So in the same exact fashion, we are witnessing, as I said, history. Because in 20 to 30 years, this experiment will have experimented and will have come to fruition, and we will see the actual power of a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin, how many people are in the market, how many people are using it, how much Lightning has grown. But we will also witness a number of countries who will have stuck to themselves. And similar to having made their own internet, will have made their own Bitcoin. They will have made their own little data protection area where people within the country will be completely in the dark once again, as many other countries who have their own internets. Nigerium is crazy. The simple idea of it shows the unwillingness that people and governments have to even think of giving their citizens an ounce of freedom. And I mean a literal ounce of freedom. But the problem is that this train will continue rolling. There is no stopping it. This is also one of the main issues right now as well. Even if Bitcoin disappeared and Bitcoin collapsed, 2 years later, there would be a new Bitcoin. There would be a new thing that was adopted. You can't stop it. People have realized that there is a way to spread data and information to everyone everywhere. This is why it is also a number of years ago that no one even talks about anymore. One of the main ideas was, if you have 4 billion people on the planet who do not have access to traditional financial banking systems, do you remember? Probably not. There were a couple of people. You know how like you basically use Bitcoin through the internet. These people figured out, they said, if other countries don't have the same framework as other countries might have, you can also send Bitcoin through radio waves and through satellites. And there was another one that I'm also missing. Like there's some other frequency wave as well. Oh, also through phone signals. Look it up. These people said, we have to make sure that everyone around the world can have access to Bitcoin. It's absolutely incredible what we have right now. But this is the pushback that we're witnessing. because you will notice more pushback, because the people who control everything, who control all the money, they don't want to change the system. But when you see these banks in these countries buying up Bitcoin and hoarding it and mining it, they understand what's coming, but they're also hedging as well. They're making sure, just in case this thing takes over, I need to make sure that I have some. I still advocate for a fair, free, and open world where people have control over themselves and over their money. And yeah, I guess not really much more to say after that one. Yeah. Like you don't understand. Like, this is by far one of my favorite news stories in a very long time. It's so nonsensical that it can only be a popular favorite news story for me. So yeah, I can't wait to hear about the other countries who are also going to start making their own chains as well. Because much like all the other CBDCs that have already launched and failed, this too will have a place in history as like a, what in the world were they thinking? I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.